Hello, I'm Janna, and welcome back to the Crafty Corner. This week, over at the Funky Junky Inspiration Avenue, we are creating to the theme of Hats Off to Our Men. So, I've decided to go the route of a grungy birthday card. If you'd like to see exactly which supplies I'm going to be using, go ahead and pause here. Alright, let's head over to the Crafty Corner. Today I decided to create a masculine themed birthday card. And to start with, I really wanted to feature some of these Tim Holtz ideology portraits. These are fantastic, and there's this wonderful one that we absolutely have to alter. Now, for the foundation, we're going to be starting with some distressed black heavy stock, and we're going to be embossing it with the Sizzix 3D embossing folder typewriter. This is going to give us a great foundation for a grungy background. And check out the detail from the folder. Absolutely love it. Now, we just need to alter this and give it a splash of color so that we can then get good and grungy. Now, for altering the space, I'm going to be starting with some decayed and some holly branch. And these are some of the distressed mica spray stains. We are also going to be doing some altering with distressed crayons, including black soot, crushed olive, salvaged patina, and cracked pistachio. Now, in my right hand, I'm just quickly giving these distressed mica spray stains a good quick shake. And while I'm still shaking these up, we can add a few spritzes with the distress sprayer to start our foundation. All right, let's go ahead and start spritzing. So I'm starting off with the decayed, and we're going to give a very generous foundation to our background. And then we're going to go in with a dash of holly branch for a bit of contrast. I'm going for a salvaged metal look, something really grungy, maybe a little rusty, maybe a bit salvaged. So we're just going to go ahead and dry the foundation off with the Ranger heat tool. Now, as you notice, it is drying relatively quickly. And the main reason for that is that we have lifted up our background so that the hot air does not have to heat the glass mat before starting to evaporate the liquid off of the background. By lifting it up, we allow the heat to go through the paper, and then that creates a much quicker drying time. And now look at those fantastic colors mingling together. We've got that beautiful decayed, and then we've got that bright splash of holly branch. That is going to look absolutely wonderful for some grunge. Now, the letters are definitely blending into the background right now, but that won't be a problem at all because that's why we have the distress crayons. The distress crayons are going to allow us to highlight the highs and lows of this embossing folder. And the more color we add to this, the more you're going to see the detail underneath and around the letters. There's this really cool pitting going on, and it really looks like old type. So, give our surface a quick clean, and we'll go ahead and bring in the distress crayons. Okay. Oof, really loving the background. All right, so I'm going to be starting off with some black soot, and I'm going to be scribbling over the high points of the letters because I want to draw attention to these. Now, we're just scribbling down, and off to the side, I am going to be spritzing a bit of water because we're going to need to smudge out the color that we are adding. I could dry smudge this with a brush, but I want the color to move around pretty quickly. So I'm just dampening my fingers and then just smushing that right into our background. And as you can see, we're getting some grunge right away just with that application of black soot. All right. That is already starting to look a little bit more grungy. Now let's go in with some of the cracked pistachio, and we're just going to scribble that on in a few places. And the main thing right now is that we're going to be building up layers with the distress crayon, and we're going to be smudging out the layers in between. And this is going to build up that feeling of grunge and just like old beaten metal, really worn, kind of weather beaten. And hopefully we'll have that perfect grungy background after a few layers. Okay, so we've got some of the cracked pistachio, and as you notice, that's like a bit more blue, and it's really projecting the color in there. And now we're going in with a little bit of crushed olive to kind of try and warm this up. And now we'll just go ahead and smush this around and see what we get. The crayon is definitely muting some of the shine and sparkle, but it's not taking away all of it at all. When we tilt the background, we're still going to see lots of shininess from the distressed mica. All right, so I did want to go back and add a little bit more darkness to this with the black soot crayon. As you can see, some of those lower levels of the embossing are really starting to poke through, and those lowest levels are going to be the sections that still have lots of shine to them, just because the distressed crayon isn't going to reach into all of those small spaces. So continuing to build that grunge, smudging it out, and we are definitely getting grungy now. I just love how you can transform a regular piece of paper into something absolutely magical with the right supplies and a really cool embossing folder. All right, a little bit more of that crushed olive. This is looking so worn. It's like this really cool tarnished brass look. Really, really happy with that. Okay, so we've got our crayon layer all down. Pretty happy. Next, I'm going back in with the Distress sprayer, and we're going to add some water droplets. And then I will quickly dry this off with the Ranger Heat tool. Once those water droplets are dry, it's definitely going to add to the distressed look of our background. Okay, and we're back. Our background is all dry. We've got some great water spots on here, and you can see all that wonderful layering that we've gotten with the crayon and the Distress mica spray stains. Really, really happy with this. Now, let's turn our attention to the main focal point of this card. We have got this fantastically dapper gentleman from Ideology Portraits, and we're going to be altering this piece with some of the Distress crayons. For the band on the hat, we're going in with a touch of prize ribbon. I'm just directly coloring onto the substrate. Once we have our color on there, I'm going to be going in with the Ranger Fine Detailer water brush, and we'll be able to spread that beautiful concentrated pigment around. And that's going to allow us to tint this photo-like paper. Okay, there we go. Nice and smooth. I just love how pigmented the watercolor pencils are. It doesn't take a whole lot, and then with the water brush, it's so easy to maneuver things around. Next, we're going to be going in with some Tattered Rose to color in the face. And this color is going to be a little bit trickier. It's very, very light, so I'll need to be pretty heavy-handed with the pigment. But since we're just going for a tinted photo look, it doesn't have to be perfect. So we'll just add as much pigment as we can and then use the water brush to move it around. So for now, I'm just going to work around all of the smaller details. Just going to work around the mustache, keep the pigment away from the eyes, and let's see how that does with the water brush. The nice thing is, if I don't have enough pigment on here, I can always go back and add more. But as I said before, Tattered Rose is really a light color, so this might take more than one application. And as you can see, the pigment is definitely reacting a bit differently than the prize ribbon did on the band of the hat. So it's going to be a little bit of trial and error, just getting a feel for all of these colors when watercoloring with them. After we finished with this guy's face, then we're going to be moving on to add some other details. The other colors that we have out today include Scorched Timber, Vintage Photo, and Lumberjack Plaid. Okay, it's not looking too bad, not too splotchy. I might need to clean up things a little bit here and there, but that is not bad at all. It really does remind me of tinting old vintage photos, just like they had a wash of color. It wasn't like really bright color, but enough color to suggest color. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's going to work. So just finishing up a few details with the water brush, and then we'll go on and grab our next color. For our next color, we're going to go in with some Vintage Photo, and we're going to color the mustache and the eyebrows. So we don't need a whole lot of color, just enough. And now let's go in with the water brush. That's really interesting. The Vintage Photo is playing out a lot more smoothly than the Tattered Rose. I guess every one of the pencils is going to have a certain amount of pigment payload, so they're all probably going to give us a little bit different results with color. All right, now lumberjack plaid. Not surprised at all. This is super, super bright, and I just need a little bit of pigment to get that really, really bright color. Love that. Lumberjack plaid is definitely my new favorite red. So vibrant. Okay. That's good. So the last color that we're going to need will be the scorched timber. And I decided that I wanted to color in the suit jacket with the darker brown. So again, we're just going to take the crayon and we're going to scribble right onto the portrait. And then I'll go in with the water brush to move the pigment around. And again, the scorched timber, that is just, oof, there is so much good color there. That's going to be really easy to move. Okay. So just going in with the water brush, and we're going to quickly move that color around, and that should be pretty good. Yep, definitely really happy about scorched timber. It was the color that we didn't know that we needed, that we absolutely needed to add to the collection. So many good colors. We've now got 72 different colors of distress to play with, so we have got quite a few options when creating, which I absolutely love. All right, so just finishing up on this side with the scorched timber, just smoothing that out, and we should be pretty good to go soon. Okay, a little bit more here. Just trying to smooth out some of those harsher marks and just make sure everything's nice and blended. Next, we're going to give this a quick dry with the Ranger heat tool and then move on to the next step for this card. Just making sure that all that color is going to stay in place and that I won't accidentally smudge it when I pick this up to add it to the card base. Okay. Yep, pretty happy with those colors that we picked. That is going to work. Let's go ahead and set this aside for a second as we bring in our background. So with the background, I want to do a bit of collage. But the first thing I want to do is give myself a bit of a landing space for the sentiment that we will add to the card. So I have a scrap of some of the ideology solid backgrounds, and we're just going to give this a tear. I want to have kind of a raw exposed edge of paper that I can then alter with some distress ink. And that's just going to give us more visual interest for our card. There we go. So with that, I'm also going to be bringing in some scorched timber distress ink and a mini ink blender. We're going to use that and cover up that sheer white line on our torn scrap of paper. So this is again going to play into that vintage vibe that we're going for with a touch of added grunginess. So I'm just taking the blending tool and I'm flicking across the edges of that piece of paper to cover up all of the white marks. And then we'll have a nice solid brown line blended into our already grungy blue paper. Okay. Yep, and that's going to go there. So I'm thinking that I will put the blue paper at the bottom of the background and then tuck the portrait just behind it like that. Okay. Yeah, I'm liking that. Now I am going to bring in a giant bin of ephemera bits and pieces, and we're going to have fun creating a background and collaging to bring this entire card together. I've got a bit of a steampunk thing going, so definitely looking for a gauge or a clock to add to all of this. And we can just have fun with bits and pieces of ephemera. So let's see, just try out a few different things, and I'm just going to put bits and pieces down as I try to figure out what the collage might look like. Right now, I don't really know what I'm looking for, so I'm just grabbing pieces, tucking things, and just seeing how it all looks in an initial layout before I commit to the design and start gluing things down with collage medium. So right now I'm kind of playing with ideas of adding different height and different colors into the background. I've got a grungy tag. We've got that piece with the 117 on it. And I'm also going to want some smaller pieces and maybe some pieces with different colors on it. I am just trying to figure out the shapes and pieces that are going to give this a more interesting feel. And like branching out into shapes besides rectangles definitely adds more visual interest to a piece. So I'm going to look for circles and small pieces. And I particularly love pieces with just like random numbers or letters on it. It just adds more layers and depth to a project. All right, so pretty happy with this. Think I am going to go with it. Now, I also do want to add a frame of washi tape around the edges. I love adding washi tape to things, and there's always so many choices, but I think I want my favorite one, the black washi with the dots, or, ooh, there also might be a really good tan piece. Let's see. Well, I've got a couple of choices, so we'll have to finish experimenting and then add the border. Okay, so right now we're going to take these two big pieces and I'm going to glue them down with collage medium, and then we'll move on to the next step. But for now, let's go ahead and put this part on fast forward. With our collaging complete, it's now time to add a border to our card. So just a little bit of ATG tape to get us started. And then we will add our decorative tape border. And this is one of the skinny tapes from Tim Holtz's Ideology. Okay. So for tape today, I decided to go with one of the more vintagey ones. This is a lovely brown with a bit of a scalloped look to it. So I thought that would fit right in with this card. So we'll just line that up and we're going to work our way all the way around the card with this border. So whenever I'm using washi tape, I like to give myself a bit of extra space so that I have room to tuck the ends behind the base of the card. I find that this helps the washi tape stay in place. So for the most part, we're just going to be working our way all the way around the card, just putting this down and making sure that everything is neatly lining up and tucking those tails in to make sure that everything is going to be nice and even. Okay, that is looking good. Just press that down, lifting that up and tucking those pieces right behind. So I think I started using lots of washi tape about 1.5 years ago. I found that the washi tape really helps frame a work and it draws your attention more to the center of a card. I also find that it helps conceal messy edges because sometimes when you use die cuts, you have little bits and pieces that might hang over the edge. You can always trim those off, but the washi tapes help hide when you have done some cutoffs of die pieces. So ever since then, I've really enjoyed adding it to the cards that I make. All right, last piece. And lift that up, tuck those tails, and there we go. We have now got a framed card. So that completes the collage phase. The next thing that we are going to do will be to add some metallic droplets to all 4 corners. And of course, we're going to be going in with some of the larger gold drops. So I've got my Tim Holtz Ideology tin that I love to store little trinkety bits in, and we'll just pull from there to add our droplets to our card. I love adding little bits of metallic to cards. It just adds a little bit of extra shine and sparkle. Okay, so looking at those corners, and we'll just start placing those pieces down, and then we will move on to the sentiment. Okay, we got 2 out of 4. There's our third one. And now one more for the remaining corner. Perfect. All right. So we'll just put a lid back on that box and on to the next step. For the sentiment, I decided to bring in the Sizzix Alphanumeric die set Theories. I like this one quite a bit. It has uppercase letters and smaller uppercase letters that give the feeling of lowercase letters when you stick them all together. So I die cut these out of some metallic craft stock and added some double-sided sticky tape to them. And as you can see, it matches perfectly with our super shiny background. And so we've got Happy B-Day on here for a completed grungy and very masculine card. We've also incorporated the entire little bit with hats off to our men. Thank you so much for joining me here today at the Crafty Corner for some more crafty fun to create this grungy, masculine, hat-themed birthday card. I've had so much fun playing around with colors and textures and, of course, getting a chance to do a bit of collaging, which I always find to be super relaxing. I hope that you too have enjoyed this process, and don't forget to check out the Funky Junky Inspiration Avenue blog to check out more wonderful projects from my teammates. And until next time, happy crafting.